Yo, how's everybody doing? You're hanging with the Niners Nut on this kind of bleak-looking Tuesday afternoon here in New York. So I envy you people who are somewhere else where it's really sunny and really warm because it is not really sunny and really warm here, which really sucks. But that being said, it is a glorious day because of this weekend's victory over the New Orleans Aints. But to be fair, very underrated New Orleans Saints team. I think Dennis Allen's done a really good job with what he has. I was thinking about yesterday how coming into this game, a lot of people had deemed it as a trap game, which I could totally understand because I think that if the Saints were running on all cylinders in terms of being limited at injury, yeah, it would have been it could have been a tougher game. I mean, that defense played really well. That defensive front really looked really good. Of course, the Alvin Kamara fumbles didn't help them anything, but for the most part, Andy Dalton has done a pretty damn good job this season with the New Orleans Saints. And it's funny because I was thinking about how Andy Dalton has been this guy who's gone from the Cincinnati Bengals being the number one to being moved around, shipped around the league. He was in the Cowboys, and then we see him now in New Orleans. And what I can't understand about the New Orleans Saints is how are they ever going to go with Jameis Winston over Andy Dalton all season long? Look, all due respect, I've said this over and over. Jameis Winston is pretty much a mediocre quarterback and a bust, to be honest. As a first round draft pick, he's a bust. He's not really a first, hasn't really played first round draft pick type of football. And that being said, I will say, coming out of that draft, Jared Goff, if you look at the way Jared Goff is playing this season and at the end of last season and earlier on in his career with the Rams, Jared Goff has underrated numbers, and you can understand why he was a number round draft pick. Now, great, no, I won't say great, but I will say a lot better than Jameis Winston. So I don't know why the Saints ever felt that they needed to go with Jameis Winston over Andy Dalton. I mean, Andy Dalton is a pretty damn good, solid quarterback who, for the most part, look at the stats this season, has really had to work with limitations in terms of the injuries. No Michael Thomas. Jarvis Landry's been in and out of the lineup. Thank you all very much for enjoying the live feed. I appreciate that. Good, brother. All going good, man. I hope everything's going good for you. Hope you had a great Thanksgiving. But yeah, I think Andy Dalton's very underrated, man. Again, Alvin Kamara, not looking like the Alvin Kamara of yesteryear. That offensive line is still pretty solid with Ryan Ramjack. Again, I think that what they're missing, and you look at the wide receiver corps. Well, Chris Olave has been the one standout rookie wide receiver, or I should say, one of the more of the rookie wide receivers who looks like he's been in the league a lot longer. He's playing like a veteran. And now I know we have Watson coming along in Green Bay. And there's a couple of other guys that I think are really starting to show their worth. But Olave has really done damage. Pickens, another guy in Pittsburgh. But for the most part, this was a pretty damn solid New Orleans Saint team. Demario Davis is still kind of like the general back there in the linebacking crew. Another guy who just never seems to get old. Is always he's like shit. He's all over the fucking place. But I gotta say, man, I didn't think this was going to be a trap game whatsoever. I figured we'd come back home to Levi and we'd kind of wipe the floor with them, but that didn't happen. They played us really tough. And it's games like that, those hard-fought games that you really get to see what your team is made of. And once again, for the most part, I loved what I saw. Let's start with the most obvious. First off, again, my hat off to Jimmy Garoppolo, who I think, again, I've said this week after week, day after day. I catch myself saying it to myself because I talk to myself a lot. He's playing the best football I've ever seen him play in his career. And this is even better than I saw him play 3 years ago when they made the Super Bowl run. The guy is tuned in. The guy just looks like a different quarterback, especially his footwork, his eyes. He threw one bad pass on Sunday, which got called back, thank God, because it would have been deemed an interception. But other than that, I can't find anything he's doing that wrong. I mean, he even tried to scramble that touchdown in. Jimmy G's got some balls, bro. A lot of people don't want to admit it because they're Jimmy G haters. They think because he's a handsome guy that he doesn't have the balls. Tried to scramble that one and couldn't get in. I agree with you, bro. Playing better and better every week. And if you are a non-objective 49ers fan, then you are not. You're looking at this with the wrong way. the so-called experts, whoever they are, a lot of them, obviously have had to change their tune about Jimmy G. I think that whole game manager thing goes out the window big time. Look at the stats. Look at his yards per throw average. And I think that he just fits perfectly for this offense. Now, saying that, let me bring this point up. And I was talking to my father about this last night. Going back, if we had Doc Emmett Brown sitting next to us, with Michael J. Fox and the DeLorean and Einstein, and we can go back to the 2 years ago, the draft, knowing what you know now. Now I know it shoulda, woulda, coulda, because hindsight's always 2020. But even before shoulda, woulda, coulda, and before why did you draft Trey Lance? No reason. I personally believe, and this is just my opinion, if Jimmy G continues to play the way he is and leads us to a Super Bowl, win or lose, you don't see Trey Lance again. That's what I'm saying, okay? If management is stupid enough to put Jimmy G out the pasture, as fans, we all have to admit the obvious. It's a bad decision. I think right now, most objective 49er fans can say the move to draft Trey Lance was a mistake. Okay? You have to admit that. And there's nothing wrong with admitting that. There's nothing wrong with believing that now. Maybe you needed to see it to believe it, but a lot of us already knew that. And, that doesn't mean we know more than anyone, but it just means that the obvious. And it's funny because I'm here in New York. You look at the New York Jets, you're going back at that draft. Look at what's happening to Zach Wilson. Now, Mike White don't just go by one game, but he had a dynamite game on Sunday, threw for over 300 yards, 3 touchdowns. I thought they should have started Joe Flacco, being that they needed that veteran presence. But my point being is that Zach Wilson has not lived up to what they thought he was going to be. Trey Lance, okay, I know he's been injured, but let's face it. The way Jimmy G is playing now, Trey Lance should not even be a thought. I don't care what anybody says. He's playing the best football I have ever seen him play. Look at the stats if you don't believe me. If you're a non-believer, if you're not a Jimmy G guy, I totally understand. The stats and the way he's playing when you see it in lifetime do not lie. He is playing among the best football with other quarterbacks in the league. Now, I know what a lot of people are going to say, well, how do you compare him to Patrick Mahomes? Well, look, Patrick Mahomes is probably playing the best football of any quarterback in the league, but that's Patrick Mahomes. Jimmy G is not Patrick Mahomes, but I'm comparing him totally in every stat to the other quarterbacks, to the Tom Brady's, to the Matt Staffords, who's done for the season, to Aaron Rodgers, to Geno Smith, who has shocked the world. To all these guys, he's playing great. Look at his completion percentage. Look at his, like I said, yards per average. Look at his rating. Look at his touchdowns, a stat in which he only has 16, but compared to the interception ratio, it's so high. You can't deny the fact that he's playing great. Okay, and he's a good pot. He's a good piece of the reason why we're having a lot of luck. Trey Lance, I don't think we would have had this with him. So again, this continues, and I think at this point, it's a moot point anyway. I don't think you're going to see Trey Lance again. Is management going to really be that convicted to their move to get Trey Lance that they're not going to go with Jimmy G long term? You can't be that stupid. I'm sure John Lynch knows that right now. I'm sure Kyle Shanahan knows that right now. They're smart guys. Hey, look, I say if Trey Lance is healthy, trade him. Trade him and do what Steve Young said. Sign Jimmy G for a long-term contract. But let's get back to that later. Let's focus on Sunday. So, yeah, I liked what I saw out of Jimmy G. The running game, for the most part, I thought, you got to give your hat off to the Saint defense. They were plugging a lot of the holes. I like that we had a nice variety of things going on in the receiving corps, whether it was to Chris McCaffrey or passes thrown to Kittle or passes thrown to Brandon Ayuk or passes thrown to Deebo. And, of course, Jawan Jennings, who I think gets the game ball by far just on that catch that he had in the back of the end zone. Jawan Jennings has really become a very valuable part of this receiving corps. And we saw that so much as last season when he was very valuable down the stretch in the end zone. I think he's taking over really, really well where Kendrick Bourne was, in terms of Kendrick Bourne being valuable near the goal line. But I think Jawan Jennings brings a different aspect because he's taller than Kendrick Bourne, and I think has better overall hands. So again, I really liked what I saw out of the receiving corps. The offensive line, which no so-called expert seems to be talking about yet. I haven't seen anybody mention that offensive line, which has played the most phenomenal amount of football all season long. I think they've given up 17 sacks now because Jimmy G, I think, got sacked Sunday. 16 or 17 sacks, I think the stats say. It's an amazing job. Going over to the defensive side of the ball, look, man, we could make the check all day on every player. Fred Warner is playing the best football I've ever seen him play. He's an all-pro. He's probably one of the best linebackers, could be the best linebacker in football right now. And I'm not just talking about on a tackle aspect. I'm talking about an overall aspect. The commentator on Sunday, I believe, was Mark Sanchez, who absolutely sucks as a commentator, mentioned, it was either him or the other gentleman, I don't remember his name, saying how Fred Warner is the complete package, whether he's moving in backwards or moving forwards, covering receivers or going left to right. And I am in total agreement. And what I'm seeing out of him and Dre Greenlaw is very similar to what we saw out of Patrick Willis and Navarro Bowman and Willis. Well, now we have a Batman and Robin duo of our own in Dre Greenlaw and Fred and Ward. But we even have a third party in Shahir, who's getting back to his health. So imagine this defense completely healed altogether. Now, what I mean by that is having Arik Armstead and having Javon Kinlaw. Although, let me say this: that Hassan Ridgeway did a great job on Sunday plugging the run for the defense. And Kevin Givens stepped in, Amin Yahoo stepped in. All these guys are stepping up, and it's look, my hat off to I say it every podcast. D'Amico Ryans is, I think he's, other than Jeff Ulbrich, ex-49er, a defensive coordinator of the New York Jets, is the best should get coordinator of the year award. I think that it's very arguable that both of them should share it because they've done phenomenal jobs with this unit. The defensive backfield looks amazing. Leo Dolanor playing great. Shavarius Ward has been, I think, one of the top corners in football. Talanoa Huffnagel, you saw how big he comes up. Jimmy Ward, I hope he doesn't stay down long. I mean, everyone is doing their part. They're so in tune to the way things are going. This is a great defense all around. We held the Saints to no points whatsoever. And, it reminds me of the great 49er teams, primarily of the great 49er defenses, who, if you know your stuff, you'll remember that when it came down to the goal line, that's where we were really in the a higher percentage of the league in the best. When you have a defense that plays really good at the goal line or in the red zone, I think that says that speaks volumes. Now, some of you may not remember this, but I remember, kind of reminds me in 1990 when the 49ers were, obviously still the powerhouse that they were in the 80s, and they played the New York Giants, who were a powerhouse at that time too, on a very famous Monday night game in Candlestick Park, in which it was a very low scoring game. I believe it was 7-3, but it's that famous game in which Ronnie Lott and Phil Simms had the famous words at midfield afterwards. Or I remember as a little bitty kid watching and screaming in, praise of Ronnie Lott for not taking any shit. That was a Giant team that was extremely, really good under Bill Parcells. I believe it was Phil Simms, Jeff Hostetler, Otis Anderson, Mark Bavaro, guys like that. That's what the defense now reminds me of. That's what the team reminds me of, the way they're playing so good by the goal line. Because in that game, the Niners held the Giants various times in the red zone. And we've seen this week in and week out, especially in the last couple of weeks, how good this defense is with their backs up against the wall. They come and answer the bell. And they, people can say, well, it's only the New Orleans Saints. Well, I don't give a shit who's it against. The only breakdown that we've really had this season defensively has come against the Kansas City Chiefs, which is understandable being the offensive juggernaut they are. How about Lot Williamson? Oh man, now you're going back. That was a defense and a half, dude. I mean, that was a defense that can pound your ass. But this defense reminds me of that, the way they were beating the living shit out of the Saints on Sunday. I mean, Alvin Kamara got his bell rung twice. I mean, listen, an ultra talented back, but dude, you got to hold on to that fucking ball. One of the things I also like too was that Juwan Johnson was not a factor in this game. If you did the stat work, the last 5 games, he's had 5 straight touchdowns. You didn't really hear his name called at all. So we have held receivers in check in terms of yards after catch, as we did to Cooper Kupp, as we did to DeAndre Hopkins, as we did to a lot of the other wide receivers that we've played. This defensive backfield has done absolute damage. And once again, as we know, as the stats don't lie in certain areas, when we don't give up 100 yards on the ground, we win. What's up? How are you? Good morning to you. We fucking win. That's the way it goes. I'm waiting for the rest of the so-called experts to wake the fuck up and know what we already know, and that this is I think this is the most deadliest team in football right now that nobody wants to play. Now, going off of Sunday's gaming into this current matchup, I see that there's a lot of posts about what Raheem Mostert was tweeting, talking about, he's finally got a quarterback that can sling it and all this shit. And I love the way that 49ers such as Nick Bosa and so many other people fired back at him. Like, man, that's just, look, I like Raheem Mostert. He's a very talented guy. My thing is, was he referring to him? Who gives a shit? But if you were, that's total disrespect. And you know what? If you think you're going to roll over this Niner team on Sunday, not even happening. Now, I will say this. He says you got a quarterback that can sling it. You always had a quarterback that could sling it. Jimmy G could sling it. I'm not taking anything away from Tagliavoa. He's very talented and very good. But at the same time, he's limited because of the injuries that he's had, which a lot of them aren't his fault. But he came into this league as, a question mark with the injured hip. But how are you even going to compare him to Jimmy G experience-wise? You cannot. You can, and I like, I like what the Dolphins are doing. I think that if you look at the Dolphins, the New York Jets, and the 49ers, and of course it all makes sense because of the coaching tree, you'll see that a lot of the times they're doing the same things offensively and sometimes on defense. Now, if you look at the Jets and mirror them with the 49ers, you'll notice because it's head coach Rob Saleh and Jeff Ulbrich, you'll notice that they did what we did when Saleh was here. They didn't have to blitz too much. They, you let the defensive front do their damage, and the linebackers drop back, which made things so much better, which is making things so much better for C.J. Mosley on the New York Jets, who's an all-pro and a tackling machine, obviously. So you look at those three teams, and you'll notice that, yeah, there's a difference in talent. Like, I think that the Niners defense is definitely the best, then the Jets, then the Dolphins out of those three. But if you look at them as a whole, you'll notice that they're doing a lot of the similar things. They run a lot of similar packages. But how are you even going to compare Tagliavoa and Jimmy G? That's incorrect on Mostert's part. At the same time, too, what I don't understand is why a guy who's so talented, who did so well, but just wants to even put that tweet out there to kind of just, I don't know, maybe cause some controversy, talk some shit. Why do you want to do that, man? That's like Bush League bullshit, And I can't wait. Yeah, he definitely was trolling, dude. It definitely was trolling. And listen, here's what I don't understand. You're a grown-ass man who's a talented athlete making money playing a game. You're blessed. Why the fuck you even trolling, dude? Why are you doing that? What is the point? Just shut the fuck up and win games. You know what I'm saying? Just shut the fuck up and win games. And to be frank, you're lucky you're still playing because of the injuries you've had. I mean, you bounced around the league. You have a great story. You're really talented. But come on, man. Don't shit on your ex-teammates like that. Don't do that. Don't do that to an organization that was really good to you, that believed in you, that utilized you for the talent that you were. Because I'm telling you what's going to happen. After we whip your ass on Sunday, you're going to change that tune a lot. Because this Dolphin team is talented, but they ain't seen a defense like us, number one. And they can be all the preparation that they want. But let's face it, their defense and ours on paper can't even compare. Okay, right now, there's no defense in this league that can compare to the way we're playing. We have the best defensive player in football in Nick Bosa. If you haven't been watching, how many fucking holding calls have there been that haven't been called? I counted 5 strangulations on Sunday of the Saints. Thank you. I agree with you. He did make his name off us. 100%. Yes, sir. Bosa is the most unstoppable force I've seen. I would say reminds me of a less faster J.J. Watt. J.J. Watt, remember in his heyday was an absolute wrecking ball. Wasn't as fast as Bosa is off the ball, but Bosa is the total package. If you look, Bosa caves in offensive lines on his side, okay? And by 80 to 90% is always in the backfield causing some type of shit. And when he doesn't get a sack, he gets pressure. And when he doesn't get pressure, get a sack, a lot of the time, he's being strangled, he's being held, he's being face masked. That happens every time. No, I could never count out Huffenegger, bro. I'm going to get to that. Don't worry. So he's the best defensive player in football. I don't care what anyone says. Looking at our defensive unit as a unit, look at the players that have stepped up that we signed in the offseason. Hassan Ridgeway is doing exactly what he's always done. He's a run stuffer at best, bro, and he does a great job of it. He plugs the hole. Nothing gets past him. He's an absolute powerhouse. He's like an old school defensive tackle. Sort of a little bit reminds me of Anthony Bowling Ball Adams, although he's a little taller and a little wider, where he just gets involved, absorbs offensive linemen, and makes it so much easier for the defense around him. And then, you have Amanyahu on the end, Ebukam on the end. You have all these guys doing their part, playing good. Givens is playing the best football he's ever played, okay? And then, look at the linebacking corps. We have the best linebacking corps in football. Again, the so-called experts are not talking about that. That trio is the best linebacking corps in football. If you really wanted to break it down and you extended all pro rosters and Pro Bowl rosters, when healthy, I know Shahir's been hurt, I know Greenlaw's hurt. All three of them are Pro Bowl bound. They could be, if Warner, or if Shahir and Greenlaw were, let's just say, the middle linebacker on other teams and the captains, they could be captains, of course. They would be all pros on their own. So there's the depth on this defense. Thank you for the term depth. It escaped my memory. The depth is ridiculous. No experts talking about that. They're not mentioning that. And then the defensive backfield has played better than we were 3 years ago in the Super Bowl. Looks 10 times better than that. And coming into this season, we all know, I hit the microphone with the coffee, not a good thing, that was a question mark. Shavarius Ward has shown that he's been worth every penny. Huffnagel has been the biggest and best surprise of all. As a future all-pro, all defensive team, all whatever you want to call it, Pro Bowl. And all these other guys, I mean, Lenore, Jimmy Ward. Jimmy Ward does not get the recognition he deserves. I've said this a million times over, he's like the general back there when he plays. Bosa's in a constant WWE match. Bosa gets fucking attacked. Someone's got to make a fucking tape at the end of the season of all the holding, strangulation, and fucking, mutilations that happens to Bosa on every down. And I love the way, who was the commentator on Sunday? That Mark Sanchez, that fucking bust who sucks as a commentator. I think it was him that said something like, I think Bosa jumped early. Shut the fuck up, dude, okay? You were like a first-round bust who played 1 year of college football. Thank God for Rex Ryan and that great New York Jet defense that kept your ass in the game. So let's stop with that shit, all right? I don't know what game you're watching. That's the most talented defensive end in all of football. They don't make players like that. Like I said, he's a much faster J.J. Watt in his prime. Every offensive line is on fucking, it has to be aware of him. He's going to cave shit in big time. And I think that this Sunday you're going to see Togliavoa running for his fucking life, man, because you're going to have Nick Bosa all in your ass and you ain't going to know what to do with it. Hence be why our defense is playing great as a unit, because you got all these guys stepping in, think about it. No Kinlaw, no Armstead, no problem. And I'm not dissing them. I'm just saying the way this defense is playing, it hasn't been a problem at all. It's funny. Like I kind of feel like Ridgeway's become like the starter I consider to be, that was expected. Same thing without Armstead, as good as he was playing in the last couple of years. But you got to give your hat off to D'Amico Ryans. If he's not a head coach next year, that's absolutely disgusting, although I don't want to lose him. But again, hat off to Robert Saleh and having Ryans under him. Hat off to D'Amico Ryans and doing the job that he's done. So Sunday was an absolute, it reminded me of old school football. It reminded me of football in the 90s, football in the 80s, those really tight-knit games in which things would kind of, you didn't have this high scoring thing going back and forth. It wasn't a shootout. And it came down to defense because we all know that defense wins games, and our defense obviously wins fucking games. And if you don't agree with that, then you really weren't watching Sunday, man, because that defense did everything Sunday to keep us in the game. Not that the offense didn't play good, and we were playing a very good defense. That was is a very underrated New Orleans Saints team, I believe. I don't care when you play a shot on the NFL, it was a big deal for a second. I agree with you. I agree with you 100%. And it's funny. Not a lot of these bullshit so-called experts are even mentioning that, but that's cool, man. I like when that happens because look, let's talk big here. Let's look at the big picture. Cowboys don't show me shit. They worry me like nothing because we know that if we draw them in the playoffs, we'll roll them up and smoke them like we did last year. They're the same team they were last year. They haven't changed. Yeah, Mika Parsons is talented. Great. 100%. Yeah, Diggs is talented. Great. They're not going to beat us, okay? Not happening. Vikings don't show me shit. Vikings are good. Got better, but very overrated. Kirk Cousins is always that guy that kind of does this. To the strong side, to the weak side. Strong side, weak side. And I'm never 100% sure, okay? They don't show me anything. Eagles are playing really good, but I'm waiting for the other shoe to fall. Yeah, I know whatever their record could be right now. That's great. But again, I don't think there's no way you're going to beat us. I don't see it happening. Okay. You haven't played anyone like us yet. So other than that, in the NFC, I don't really see somebody that's that threatening. I'm more concerned about the Kansas City Chiefs. I'm looking past, just that's what I'm concerned about. But again, I'm probably overshooting it, just being overly cautious and whatnot. But that's okay. Also, too, it doesn't help that they beat us pretty bad. But that's all right. We need at least a touchdown a quarter with this offense. It would be nice to see. I mean, we've seen it happen before, but I think that again, this defense is just doing something so good, and it's not like the offense didn't play good Sunday. They did. I like the play calling. I liked a lot of the calls. Deebo got in. We got Deebo into it more. Jennings was involved more. Kittle was involved more. I like what I saw. It's a shit shame that Elijah Mitchell went down again. I don't like to see that happen. But again, all these weapons we have, you can't stop it. The dog we bring to the fight is always tough. Yeah, man, and that's a testament spoken for, I think, from the coaching staff on down to the players, a special team. Eagles a suspect, 100% agree with you. They do not, I am not sold on them. I don't give a fuck. I'm not sold on Jalen Hurts. As good as he's playing, I'm not sold on him. Okay?
You've worn many hats from past jobs, in fact. Now you can trade in those hats to help
ESPN
your
stupid commercial
camp.
going off. Sorry
Your
about
past
that.
experience can help.
Had to pause it. But yeah, I'm not sold on them, dude. You know what? Behind the head, the Bills, I think they're starting to lose credibility, I think, because Josh Allen's trying to do too much because they really haven't had a luck running the ball. Like, I mean, when I think of the Buffalo Bills, the last supreme running back they really had, like I'm talking supreme, I'm talking great, it's Thurman Thomas, and then after him, I mean, there's been a few. There was Kenneth Davis, and they had Marshawn Lynch for a bit, but they just can't seem to become a running game. And I think that he's just taking on too much. You saw the hits he sustained against the Jets. You saw that they almost dropped that one this past Thursday. So I'm not saying they're not talented, but I think they're suspect. I think the Chiefs are probably fundamentally the best tuned offensive system I've seen, and that defense is playing really good. And that's why I think the both of us are going to meet up in the Super Bowl again, because I think that our offense is on a different level and our defense is through the fucking roof. And I don't see any other team in the NFL on par with us. That's just me. Do you think Mason will back McCaffrey? I'd like it. I mean, the kid's got talent, it's obvious. I love having him back there. We don't see the rookie back there being utilized, so why not? I don't know about this Elijah Mitchell injury so much. What are they saying? I know it was a knee injury, but I don't know what the longevity is and how the seriousness of it. These goal line stops were top notch. Football, dude. Talk about fucking taking I couldn't even eat. I was trying to eat it. I was like, I can't eat right now, man. Like I gotta fucking put the food down. I had to stand up in front of the goddamn TV waiting for us to force that turnover. But you couldn't. I don't think there's a defense that's so in tuned and an offense. Jimmy G, they're so in tuned. I don't think you're gonna see Trey Lance again. That's my opinion. Looking at some stats from Sunday, Andy Dalton of 18 to 29, 204. Andy Dalton's a damn good quarterback. I don't care what anybody says. I think he could be a starter on many teams. If he was for the New York Jets, he could start. He obviously is a starter in New Orleans. He could be a starter on Houston. He could be a starter in Indianapolis. Because Matt Ryan's playing like he went back in fucking time. Talk about Doc Emmett Brown going back in time. 78 miles per hour, you're going to see some serious shit. Yeah, well, no shit, because you look like shit right now. But yeah, he's a pretty solid quarterback, man. 6 to 8, okay. That sucks. That sucks, man. Mason will definitely be back up in his strong back that runs hard and should help out. Yeah, he is gritty. He kind of reminds me of a younger version of JaMychal Hasty, although it's really nice, speaking of JaMychal Hasty, to see him doing well in Jacksonville. It's really good to see Jeff Wilson Jr. be doing good in Miami. I'm really happy for the both of them. I don't know about you guys. I hate Taysom Hill with a passion. Think he's talented, but I fucking can't stand when he comes in out of the game. I was hoping they would fucking level him Sunday. Like, someone hit this motherfucker, please, because we know what he's going to do every time he gets the ball back, snap back. And we know you're going to fucking do the thing to the side, either dump it or pitch it or take it. We know what's coming. You're not fooling us. Here's the biggest stat for me. On the ground, we held all their running backs to 13 yards. Alvin Kamara, 13 yards. Mark Ingram, 10 yards. Taysom Hill, 13 yards. Andy Dalton led the way. He had that big gallop for 10 yards. Nice to see he has wheels still. He only had 21 yards on the ground. So when we hold teams running the ball for less yardage, we win. That's just the way it is. Chris Olave, 5 catches, 62 yards. That kid's going to be a talent. Rashad Shaheed, 2 catches, 53 yards. I like what I saw in him. He was running the ball too. Alvin Kamara, 6 catches, 37. Something's not the same with him. Jarvis Landry, 2 catches, 20. Adam Troutman, who's never really caught on one pass, 17 yards. Traquan Smith, 1, and Taysom Hill, 1. We held their ass in check big time. Of course, Alvin Kamara had got butter on his hands, or he caught a case of Huffenega-itis because you just got fucking lit up like a Christmas tree by Huffenega. I will say this, though, their defense, Chris Harris Jr., that was a punk-ass fucking move when you hit Juwan Jennings out of bounds. If that flag wouldn't have been thrown, dude, I would have fucking lost my shit because that was some bullshit, man. You got beat in that route, which they showed on the replay, and that's just some dirty shit. I don't go for that. Talking about late hits, did anyone see the late hit they called on Nick Bosa? What bullshit. What bullshit. Horrible fucking call. Horrible call. Chris Harris, 7 tackles. Caden Ellis, very talented guy, 14 tackles. He was all over the field. Demario Davis always. Gave up 1 sack to Shy Tuttle. By the way, I thought, you're talking about a personal foul. I know he came a little low on Jimmy G there, don't you think? That was some dirty bullshit too. You went after that knee. Come on, man. Come on. Other than that 1 sack, that was about it. Moving over to the 49ers side of the game. Garoppolo, 26 to 37 for 222, 1 touchdown, no interceptions, 94.7 rating. Yeah, dude, the run D is tight. It's so tight. Mason brings you back to Garrison Hurst, really? Okay, that's an interesting assessment, man. I want to see a lot more out of him, and definitely take that assessment into consideration because Garrison Hurst was such a fucking phenomenal talent, and Mason in preseason showed that he can definitely be a jack of all trades. I think. So that's I hope, I hope. Running the ball wasn't our best. Obviously we had, Just going to move this 1 second over to this side so I can see a little better the screen. Mitchell, 35 yards on 7 carries. McCaffrey, 32 on 11. Mason, 25 on 5. And Jimmy G, 4 on 4. We didn't really, weren't able to break out for any big runs. But, I think we made up for that on the defensive side of the ball. Brandon Ayuk continues his run as the top receiver. 5 catches, 65 yards. John Jennings, 6 catches, 49 yards and a TD. Deebo, 3 for 43. Kittle, 3 for 26. McCaffrey, 4 for 17. Ray had 1. Mitchell and Jusek, they're listening to us. They're throwing to Jusek more. So the ball is spread around nicely. Forcing the fumbles, of course. Ebelcom and Dre Greenlaw are covering. Dre Greenlaw made a huge recovery there at the end, which was really nice to see. Talk about being at the right place at the right time. Holy shit. And then let's go to the defensive side of the ball. Talanoa Huffanega leads the team in tackles on Sunday with 9 total. He had that big hit on Alvin Kamara. Fred Warner, 7 tackles, 2 passes defended, 1 quarterback hit. Diamador Lenore, I butchered that poor man's name. Man, he's playing so good. Dre Greenlaw, talk about comeback player of the year. Lenore is in that category somewhere. Dre Greenlaw, such a talent. Ward, Shahir, Bosa, Gibson Sr. doesn't get enough credibility. He's played phenomenal. I think the best football of his career. Jimmy Ward, Kerry Hyde, Hassan Ridgeway, even those 2 tackles. The stats didn't do him any justice because he was really in there plugging shit away. I mean, but I really like the decisions he is making in the pocket. Yeah, me too, man. I love the decision making he's been making the last couple of weeks. I mean, it's anything past the Denver game has just been an upgrade. And now just going over some team stats quick. Again, first downs, our 21 to their 14. Third down wasn't the best. We were 5 of 13 to their 4-11. But that, fourth down efficiency, we were 1 for 2. That was huge. Total plays, our 67 to their 53. Total yards, our 317 to their 260. Yards per play were low, 4.7 for us, and theirs was 4.9, which goes to tell you that it was a really good defensive stance for both teams. And passing yards, our 221 to their 197. Rushing yards, our 96 to their 63. Red zone, we were 1 of 3 to their 0 for 2. Penalties, our 7 for 64 to their 6 for 46. But to be fair, 2 of those penalties were dog shit. But we got to get the penalties down. We're a team that just doesn't operate well once we get past 5 penalties. I think it works against us. And time of possession has always been what it's been. We've held the ball for 34 minutes to their 25. And if you saw at one point in the game, I think it was after the first half, we held them to absolutely nothing. We didn't give them shit. So it's just a great win, man. It's just such a great win to have at home. That defensive stance so important. And coming up this week is going to be a real interesting game, man. We face Tyreek Hill, we face Jeff Wilson Jr., Raheem Mostert. We face Mike McDaniel. I call it student versus teacher. It's almost like Obi-Wan taking on Luke for the most part. But I think that this is another winnable game. I mean, what do we have? We have Miami, then we have Tampa Bay. It's very fair to say that we could run the table and win and not lose at all in these last couple of games that we have. It's very, I think it's very possible that does happen. One thing I will say though is that when you look at everything on an individual position by position, I don't think we're lacking anywhere. And we've been really lucky with the injuries. So far, so good. I mean, it sucks that we lost Mitchell, and it sucks that we don't have Kinlaw and Armstead. But other than that, I think the guys who have filled in have done so admirably, and we're not limited. Yeah, the defensive red zone, were huge. So again, I'm waiting for the rest of these experts to catch up and know what we already know and watch what we're watching, because I don't think they're watching. But the only other team that I can think of right now that I would worry about isn't even in our, is in the AFC. That to me is Kansas City. They're the only other team that I feel is playing the good quality type of football on both sides of the ball that we are. Yeah, the next 2 weeks are realistically winnable. We look at. I was looking at the Tampa Bay game, thinking this is that going to be that point of the season where Tom Brady starts the ascension upward. But obviously, this loss they had Sunday could have put a dagger in that. It's not Brady's fault. He's still playing good statistic wise. They just don't have a lot around them. They're not the same team, obviously. But these definitely two winnable games. I think there's a good chance we could kind of blow out Miami, like a 34-17, because I from watching them, they're very flashy, but I think that we have what's on our side more is the experience and the depth that we're getting. Plus the weaponry on offense. Their defense is playing good, but they're not playing anywhere like we are. And I don't think they're going to be able to stop all those weapons on offense, because let's face it, the weapons that we have right now are, besides Kittle and Ayuk, and you got Deebo, and Deebo can run the ball and catch the ball. McCaffrey, run the ball, catch the ball. Kittle, blocking, catching the ball. Uh, Jennings, I mean, and that offensive line. I just think everything is at an all-time high. I can't see them losing this game. I think they're going to stuff the run. I think that they're going to do a lot of play action, which I feel when Jimmy G runs play action, I think it works so much more. I think he sells the fake really well. He has really good footwork, really good with his hands. And I really like those crossing patterns a lot from Deebo and Ayuk, primarily because of the speed they have, that they're able to just get that edge on them, turn on a dime, and just go. I think he threw one bad pass that was the interception that got called back. But what I like to see is that, Shanahan is going more. He's not going so much lateral now. He's going more, diagonally down the field. And I think that with Jennings as a third receiver and McLeod, you're seeing Jimmy G's ability to stretch the field even more. I mean, he's been throwing the ball a lot more than a lot of us expected, because to our knowledge, this is a running offense. Well, Sunday, that didn't look like that. And it didn't look like that way against the Cardinals either. And just look at the yardage that Jimmy G acquired during that game. So everything is working out. Everything is sinking in the way it should be. And again, I think that if it continues this way, this is a better team than we saw 3 years ago in the Super Bowl. Yeah, the Bengals are on a win streak, but you know what, bro? The Bengals are not the same. I know they don't have Jamar Chase. I know Joe Mixon's been nicked up, but there's something off about them. The only other team I could see in the AFC that's playing solid playoff type football is the Tennessee Titans. And I think that has to be a testament to Vrabel, because I think he's by far the best coach, or one of the best fundamental coaches in all of football. That's a unit that's playing as a unit. What I mean is, they're not doing things that you wouldn't expect them to do. They do exactly what they say they're going to do, and it works. Henry running the ball, Tannehill. Some weeks he doesn't throw the ball that week. Some weeks he does. Some weeks he can, he scrambles out of the backfield. They utilize so many different receivers, whether it's Treylon Burks or Hooper, who had 2 touchdowns last week. So that's just a very well coached team with a very good defense. They're not playing as good as the Kansas City Chiefs are dynamically, but I think they're one of the more tighter teams in football. In the NFC, the only one I can think of right now is us. I don't see any other team, although I will say Seattle, I think, is a very well-coached team under Pete Carroll. Nowhere near where we are, talent-wise. We're going to whip their ass again. But for what they lost and what they have, Carroll has done a phenomenal job at getting a lot out of the rookie Walker, out of Geno Smith, out of Jordan Brooks, out of Barton. Those 4 teams, I think, are probably the most well-coached teams in all of football right now. But if you're talking about legitimate I'd say there's 3 right now, and Buffalo has kind of fallen off in that area. I think it's, and this is in no order. It's us, Kansas City, and Tennessee. Okay, um, Buffalo needs to really get back to where they were in order to change my mind. Dallas will never. Dallas is cotton candy. We know what time it is with them. Um, Another team not playing. How do I say this? Doesn't have a lot of thoroughbreds, but is a very well coached team and a fundamental team, and they beat us. Is the Atlanta Falcons. Now, obviously, I don't think they're going to get to the playoffs, but they're another team that reminds me a little bit of Tennessee in terms that they play exactly as how they're coached, and you know what you're going to get out of them, and it's working. So, you know, that's all I'm really seeing. But I don't think any of these teams are in our league in the NFC. I think the NFC is wide open for us to destroy it. It might rain and we'll work to our favor. Yeah, we play better in the rain, always have, and get Gray in there on certain plays. Yeah, man, it'd be nice to see the rookie get in there. He just hasn't had a chance to get on the field. I know he was injured, but Ray is such an important part of the team too. I know that we don't see that in the stats sometimes, but I think that his experience as a kick and punt returner and making the right decision and then choosing to do so and being utilized as a wide receiver at times, he's so important. He was such a good pickup. Yeah, I was saying about the Bills. The Bills lost a step. I don't know if it has to do with the injuries. I mean, Allen's a little nicked up. McKenzie was a little nicked up. I just think that if they ran the ball half as good as they threw the ball, it would be a total different thing. The defense took on some injuries to Greg Rousseau, but I think they're getting back to normal. But I just think Kansas City has their number, man, and I think it all comes down to really good coaching and just having a unit that has played together with experience for quite some time, as have the 49ers. I mean, when you think about the same players that were on this team 3 years ago in our Super Bowl run, you're thinking of Jimmy G, you're thinking of Deebo, you're thinking of, Kittle, you're thinking of, Bosa. You're thinking of so many guys, Jimmy Ward, Robbiegould, even though he's a kicker. You're thinking of all these guys who have been around, who are part of it. I think that plays a good part in it. Is just having the right guys around you with experience, and Kansas City has a shitload of that. So that's the only team I really see being a legit threat. But NFC wise, I don't see anyone that really impresses or scares me, man, other than us. So I'm looking. I really hope we actually absolutely step on Miami's balls, like a 34-41-17 blowout. I would love to see, and I think it would come at the right time too. So let's keep our eye. And I know someone just mentioned that Mitchell is out for 6 to 8 weeks, which basically means the season, which really sucks. Um, he was really looking good too on his comeback from injury. But that's why we have Mason. That's where we have Davis Price, and we've seen that this team is resilient when injuries happen. But look, man, overall a great win, 13-0, a shutout. Uh, Game balls to Nick Bosa, game balls to Juwan Jennings. Um, you know, a game ball to Robbiegould, game ball to Mitch Wishnowsky, who's I think gone under the radar as such a valuable piece to the puzzle this year in the way he's been able to trap a lot of teams inside the 20. So great victory all around. Another great game by Shan. He was coaching some of the best football I think of his career. So we'll take it and then some. Let's see if the so-called experts catch up. I appreciate you guys hanging with me today. Uh, thank you for listening on the live feed. Thank you for following the channel and checking it out. Yeah, he could be one of the best punters in the league. He's valuable, man. He reminds me, like I said, of when we had Andy Lee 3 years ago, and Andy Lee was I remember the commentator talking about he's like an offensive weapon who helps you, push the offense back and trap them inside. It's so valuable and so overlooked, man. It really is. But he is very valuable, especially for this defense who does really well when we can trap a team back, uh, you know, in the teens or even in the tens or even in the single digit numbers. I mean, you're going to be in trouble. So let's keep an eye on what happens this week. Hopefully Deebo is back at 100% with his hamstring injury. Hopefully we get Arik Armstead back at some point. I don't think we're going to see Kinlaw again this season. If it's that knee again. And let's just see who else stays healthy, man. I know Spencer Burford went down Sunday, which I hated to see, although I think Daniel Brunskill filled in really good. Definitely the Pro Bowl, bro. If anyone has any news on Spencer Burford's injury status, please let me know. In the meantime, you can hit me up with messages anytime, whatever. I really appreciate it. So this is for the Saints right here. A big fat one, a big fat 0. Play your trombones to this shit. All right. Peace, everybody.